this is the whole picture of man on earth. God first. That's what I'm passing across as a message to you. She has been active in church, and God also recognizes her. She was a member and one-time president of the Resurrection League Chapel of Resurrection in the University of the Bible. And you know what? She is good at home, good in church, good in academy, even in a double housing estate, resident association. She was treasurer of the Grand Association. But you know, most impressive is marrying to a great husband, God-fearing, a second husband. It's our method of taking the home. And it's not too much something can be a weariness of your flesh. Let us say at the conclusion of the whole matter. Why am I alive? Why are you here on earth? Dear God, and keep His commandments. This is the whole picture of man on earth. God first. That's what I'm passing across as a message to you. Too much something can be a weariness of your flesh. Let us say at the conclusion of the whole matter. Why am I alive? Why are you here on earth? Fear God and keep His commandments. This is the whole picture of man on earth. God first. That's what I'm passing across as a message to you. She has been active in church, and God also recognizes her. She was a member and one-time president of the Resurrection League Chapel of Resurrection in the University of the Bible. And you know what? She is good at home, good in church, good in academy, even in a double housing estate, resident association. She was treasurer of the Grand Association. But you know, most impressive is marrying to a great husband, God-fearing, a second husband. It's our method of taking the home. And the economist and the consultant stands and take a bow. Take a bow to the God. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Professor Oladini Oladipo bless the Dr. Mrs. Oludolapo Aladabeni Akinowo. Please take a bow. Mr. Akinowo Akinowo and Mrs. Akinola Okupotemi Akinowo. Please take a bow. God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 9th Inaugural Lecture on the topic Nigerian Foods for Good Nutrition and Optimal Health, will be delivered by Professor Ajayi Crowther to the podium.
The Vice Chancellor, Ajayi Crowther University, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, the University Registrar, the University Bursar, the University Acting Librarian, the Dean, Faculty of Natural Sciences, Deans of other faculties, postgraduate school and student affairs, heads of departments and units, professors and members of Senate and university congregation, distinguished students of the Department of Chemical Sciences, distinguished invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The title of my inaugural lecture today is Nigerian Foods for Good Nutrition and Optimal Health. I thank the Almighty God for the privilege to deliver my inaugural lecture at Ajayi Crowther University of York. It is not of him that runneth, but of the Lord that sheweth mercy. Romans 9:16. The Lord has been merciful to me, and I give him all the glory and honor. I'm also very grateful to my Vice Chancellor, the very Reverend Professor Dr. F. Ajayi, Bishop Theologian, for his support, encouragement, and the opportunity to deliver this inaugural lecture. Thank you, sir. This is the 5th inaugural lecture from the Faculty of Natural Sciences and the second to be presented by my department, the Department of Chemical Sciences. The first was presented by Professor G.O. Ajayi in 2016 and was titled, "Now That We Know, the Journey of an Analytical Chemist." Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I was privileged to attend the best institutions in Nigeria for my academic training. My primary education was at St. James's Primary School. My secondary was at Queen's School. I attended Comprehensive High School for my higher school, and all my degrees, BSc Honours Chemistry, Postgraduate Diploma in Food Science and Applied Nutrition, Masters and PhD in Human Nutrition were all obtained from the University of Ibadan, Nigeria's first and the best university. That is after Ajayi Crowther University. My journey into food studies started at the Department of Chemistry, University of Ibadan, and one of the courses in my final year degree was titled Biological Macromolecules. This course was taught by an erudite professor of organic chemistry, the late Professor Donald Ekong. There, we learned about the nutrients and other components of foods, their structures, their chemistry and functions. I was fascinated by this course, and I wondered what chemistry had to do with food. After my graduation in 1970, I was admitted to the newly created Food Science and Applied Nutrition Unit of the University of Ibadan. There, I enjoyed the UNICEF scholarship for a postgraduate diploma in Food Science and Applied Nutrition. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, that was the beginning of my foray into food science and nutrition, and since then, I have not looked back. There are 3 key words in the title of this inaugural lecture, namely food, nutrition, and health. And I will take time to explain these terms and how they are related in the course of this lecture. Food is a basic necessity of man, and any substance that is eaten or drunk, which meets the need of the body for energy, for growth, and for maintenance of good health throughout life, can be defined as food. Nutrition science is a science that studies food, its actions, its interactions, the balance of constituents in the food in relation to health and diseases, and it also studies processes by which an organism can ingest, absorb, transport, and utilize nutrients and dispose of end products. Nutrition is a science as well as an art. Health, according to WHO, has been defined as complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not mere absence of disease or infirmity. A healthy state will give optimal growth and development to the individual. There are many functions of food, but they can be classified into 3 categories, namely physiological, social, and psychological. The major physiological function of food is to provide energy to the body. and the energy so released is used to sustain essential processes that maintains life and allows us to carry out our various activities, be it professional, household, or recreational. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are the energy-yielding nutrients in food. Secondly, food is used for growth, maintenance, and bodybuilding. Proteins especially are the bodybuilding foods, while some nutrients are also required to regulate body processes, maintain body temperature, contraction of muscles, control of water balance, clotting of blood, and removal of waste from the body. Finally, the third physiological function of food is to maintain body resistance to diseases and infection. Socially, food is very important. It's an integral part of people's social existence. Feasts are given at specific stages of life, at birth, at naming ceremonies, at birthdays. Even during funeral ceremonies, we also serve food. Psychological. Food can also satisfy certain emotional needs like sense of comfort, security, love, attention, and sharing of food among friends is a token of friendship and acceptance. The chemical components of food is what we call nutrients, and they include the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, fiber, minerals, vitamins, and water. There are over 40 essential nutrients supplied by food, which are essential for growth, reproduction, and maintenance of good health. Nutrients that we consume in large quantities, we call those ones macronutrients. Macronutrients. And examples, we have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Those that are consumed in relatively small quantities, but are also essential, we call those ones micronutrients. Now, chemically, carbohydrates are polymers of polyhydroxy alkanones, acids, or their simple derivatives, and they contain the acetyl type linkages. They are organic compounds containing carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen with a ratio of hydrogen to oxygen of 2:1, the same as in water. And the main function of the carbohydrates, as we have said earlier, is to provide fuel mainly for the central nervous system and for the working muscles. Proteins are the most versatile macromolecule in the living system, and they serve many essential biological functions. Proteins are essential for growth and replacement of worn-out tissues. Examples of foods that are rich in proteins include meat, fish, eggs, legumes, and so on. Now we come to lipids, or fats and oils. I'm not referring to engine oil or brake oil at this point. I'm referring to the fats and oils that we eat. They are essentially mixtures of esters of long-chain fatty acids and glycerol, and they are an important part of the diet. They serve as concentrated source of energy, providing 9 kilocalories per gram compared to carbohydrates and protein that yield only 4 kilocalories, metabolizing energy per gram. Vitamins are micronutrients. They are required in only small quantities, but they are also very important, especially in regulation of body metabolism. Essentially, we have two groups: water-soluble vitamins, vitamin C and the B complex, and we also have the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. Food sources of vitamins are mainly from fruits and vegetables. At this time, I want to serve a note of caution. It is always advisable to get our sources of vitamins from natural foods, our fruits, mostly the oranges, the pawpaw, the pineapple, and so on and so forth. The use of synthetic multivitamins as much as possible should be avoided because high intake of vitamins can lead to a condition that we call hypervitaminosis. Whereas if you consume the vitamins from natural sources, it is in a better state. Another component of food, we have minerals. They are the inorganic elements that are present in food. Some are required in large quantities like calcium, magnesium, while others are needed just in small traces like zinc, iodine, cobalt, and so on and so forth. Now, water. You won't believe it, but water is an important nutrient to the body. In fact, about 70% of our body is made up of water. It is the solvent of life and provides the medium for many biochemical reactions in the body. Water plays a very significant role, especially for excretion of waste products from the body, and it is essential that water equilibrium is maintained so as to have a balanced water. If there is too much water, it can lead to intoxication, whereas if there is not enough water, it can lead to dehydration. Balanced diets. When we eat, we don't eat carbohydrates, we don't eat the same, we eat diet, we eat eba, we eat rice, we eat amala. And that is what we refer to as a diet. It's a combination of different foods that we consume. And there are two types of diets. You have some can be therapeutic diets. These ones are used for managing certain diseases, whereas the others refer to the general nutrition of the body. Now, for a diet to be balanced, it must contain and supply to the body all the nutrients that are needed for optimal growth and development. Such a diet is able to maintain the structural integrity and functional efficiency of the body required for active and productive life. There are many advantages when you take a balanced diet. It includes prevention of diseases and infection. It helps to control body weight. It helps to promote healthy body growth. It helps in promoting good mental function, and it also helps in the way you look. The Yorubas, they say, "Oúnjẹ lọ̀rẹ́ àwọ̀." The better the food you eat, the more it shows, even in your appearance. Can we clap for the Yoruba race? A typical balanced diet can be depicted as a food pyramid, which is a triangular diagram representing optimum number of servings to be eaten each day. It was introduced in Sweden in 1974, but it has undergone many modifications since then. The United States Department of Agriculture introduced a diagram that we call My Plate. This is a current nutrition guide depicting a plate setting with a plate and cup made up of 5 food groups of fruits, vegetables, grains, proteins, and dairy. Majority of the dietary calories are obtained from fruits, from vegetables, from whole grains, legumes, nuts, and lean meat. I dare to say that in Nigeria, we have enough food resources to achieve this diet template. Half of the plate, which is made up of fruits and vegetables, we can provide for that. We have a lot of fruits, we have a lot of vegetables, and the other half containing grains, we can substitute with root tubers like yam, cocoyam, sweet potato, as long as we can incorporate all these into our diet, we can meet the required standards. Now, before we eat, we normally process the food. And during food processing, essentially, we convert raw food into products which involves the use of many operations. Some of them can be mechanical, others can be chemical operations. And the processed food has a higher shelf life. Various methods of processing include sun drying, cooking, fermentation, roasting, smoking, steaming, oven baking, and so on and so forth. All these processes we use both in the home and at the industrial level. My research. One of my earliest research work was to establish the efficacy of the traditional method in the processing of cassava root tuber. Cassava is a staple root crop in many African countries and plays a major role in alleviating food prices because of its efficient source as food energy. It is traditionally processed into products like gari, lafun, cocoa gari, that's in the riverline area, that's where they say cocoa gari, and starch. In some communities, they eat starch. Now, the toxic nature of cassava is due to the presence of two cyanogenic glycosides, namely vinamarin and methylvinamarin. These glycosides can easily be hydrolyzed to give us hydrocyanic acid, which is toxic. This acid has been implicated in the etiology of tropic antalgic neuropathy. This is a group of nervous disorders which was discovered in patients who have been subsisting for a long time on diets of cassava products. In our study, we looked at the changes in the level of the hydrocyanic acid concentration during the traditional processing of cassava into gari and lafun. And we found out that with these traditional processes, which includes mashing, fermentation, pressing, roasting, we find out that the gari that is obtained at the end of the processes has the hydrocyanic acid significantly reduced. So our forefathers and our foremothers, they were aware of the need for cassava to be fermented so as to reduce this toxic substance. The fermentation and the dewatering steps were found to be most effective in reducing the level of the hydrocyanic acid. We also looked at what happened during the preparation of lafun, and we found out that the soaking of the cassava in static water was responsible for most of the 75% reduction of the hydrocyanic acid that was observed during the preparation of lafun from cassava. So we see that our traditional processes are quite effective, but nowadays we have seen cases where gari is being processed in just one day. In such processing, the fermentation period has been considerably reduced. In such cases, at times they add palm oil just to temper the level of the hydrocyanic acid. But to the best of my knowledge, it is best to allow the fermentation to occur for at least 3 days, so that at the end of the day we have a product that is safe for human consumption. Another staple that we looked at is maize. Maize is normally processed into ogi. Again, ogi is a fermented product, and when we mix it with water and boil it, it forms a pulp. Now, the problem with maize is that it contains phytic acid. Phytic acid is able to form complexes with metal ions like zinc, calcium, iron, manganese. And once it forms complexes with this, the body cannot benefit because it will not be biologically available to the body. Even though the human system contains the enzyme phytase, but it does not seem to play any significant role. So in our study, we monitored the level, the changes in the phytase and how the free minerals are affected. And we found out that by the time you process your ogi, the level of phytase has decreased significantly. The phytic concentration has been reduced by about 78.5%. However, and this is important, the minerals that are released is in the omidum, what we call omidum. You will all recall in our younger days, when you were sent to go and buy ogi, they will tell you, take omidum. There seems to be a lot of sense in that, because the free minerals that have been released from the complexes goes into the omidum. And when you go to buy your ogi and you take the omidum and you use it to prepare the ogi, you are indirectly introducing those mineral ions back into the food, and that makes it available to the body. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, processing of food is very important, but there are always two sides to a coin. When you process food, it can either increase the nutritional quality or it can decrease it. In our study on the processing of fruits in a canning factory in Ibadan, we found out that fruits that are supposed to be good sources of vitamin C, by the time the fruits were processed, at that time they were using a pasteurization method whereby the food was heated to 180 degrees Fahrenheit for just 4 minutes. But even that condition was sufficient to considerably reduce the level of ascorbic acid, both in the juice, pineapple juice, orange juice, pineapple slices, orange, and so on and so forth. This shows that there can be losses, especially with ascorbic acid. And again, when the fruit products were stored, at the end of 3 months, we found that there was virtually no ascorbic acid in that food sample. Which means that if you go to the market and you buy the canned food, thinking that it's going to supply your vitamin C, you are not getting anything out of it. Grinding. I'm sure we are all familiar with grinding. Grinding is one of the commonest processing techniques that we use in preparing our food. Our peppers, tomatoes, onions, cowpeas, maize, they are all subjected to grinding before they are finally cooked. In the rural areas, they use grinding stone, whereas in the urban centers, we use what do we use? We use blender, and we also use these artificial mills. Now, the grinding stone is an igneous rock. It contains metals like sodium, potassium, iron. The blade or the blender is made up of stainless steel, which is an alloy of many elements like iron, carbon, chromium, and nickel. This attrition meal is made from scraps of metal, mostly iron. Now, in our study, we are looking at the uptake of metals using these grinding devices. And we found out that in all of them, there was uptake of metals by food during grinding. That means when you grind your maize, when you grind your beans, using your whatever method you are using, some mineral ions will get into the food from the device. Now, these metals can be a source of trace element contamination in food, and accumulation in the body can result in middle and long-term health risks. For instance, iron is easily picked up, and at high concentrations it becomes toxic. If you have iron overload, it can lead to cirrhosis and deposition of iron in lungs, pancreas, and the heart. However, the use of grinding stone takes off the list. Do we say we should go back to grinding stone? In any case, this is what is being used in the villages at the rural level. That's what they use. And if you have ever taken any stew that is prepared from pepper using grinding stone, you will know that there is a difference. However, I want to assure you that we can still make up with using meals made up of stainless steel material. In fact, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Ajayi, has pronounced that in the near future, all meals imported into the country must be made up of stainless steel material. This will go a long way in reducing and controlling metal contamination of food during grinding. Mr. Vice Chancellor, the second phase of my research work was the chemical evaluation of various foods and diets. The pioneering work in this area was by late Professor B.A. Oyenuga, and he analyzed various foods and feeding stuff from Nigeria, and the data so obtained has been used in nutrition service, dietetic treatments of patients, and by standard organizations. My purpose, therefore, was to provide analytical data to fill the missing gaps in the existing food composition tables. The first in the series was to analyze school snacks. In our days, they used to serve school meal. In our primary school, I remember my primary school very well. We had beans on one day. The second day we have pottage. Another time we have yam. I don't think we ever had rice, because rice at that time was at that time we were only eating rice once a week, and that's on Sunday. But nowadays, we find that many schools do not serve meals, they serve snacks. And what are the snacks? Puff-puff, buns, cake, and all these ice drinks. So we studied these samples, and we found that from our chemical analysis that many of them had low levels of protein. It is only where you had beans and sauce being served, that you can see there's any contribution to the protein intake of the students. The snacks were found to be poor sources of iron, zinc, and copper. School meals rather than school snacks should be provided. School meals rather than school snacks should be provided to school children to provide adequate nutrition, especially for children whose home diets are very poor. If a child goes to school and can have one proper meal in a day, it will go a long way in improving the nutritional status of that child. The target of the school meal should be to provide half of the daily recommended intake of protein and a third of energy. The federal government has introduced a school feeding scheme. It's still in the pilot stage. It involves, I think, about 6 states. And in this pilot scheme, they are making use of local available foods like beans, sweet potato especially, and vegetables to provide school meals for the children. I hope that this scheme will become popularized. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, instant noodles. Instant noodles was introduced to the Nigerian market in 1988, and since then, its consumption has increased tremendously. My students, I know many of you like to eat noodles. Yes. Okay. Let's see what is there. It's going to provide some carbohydrates, a little protein, but the most important snack is the level of sodium. The level of sodium in the product is very, very high. And my advice to you is that when you are preparing your noodle, don't use the condiments that they have provided, because you don't know what is there. Use your own condiments, the one you know is there. Condiments like onions, tomatoes, carrots, that's what you should add. You should omit the condiment that comes in the pack, because why? You don't know what is inside it. Biscuits. Biscuits are commonly consumed in Nigeria as snacks, and there are many companies that are making business of this. In our studies on the chemical composition of biscuits, the result shows again that they were relatively good sources of energy and available carbohydrates, but poor sources of minerals like calcium, zinc, magnesium, and so on and so forth. Biscuits can only supplement your diet. At times you ask a student, have you had breakfast today? You say, yes, ma'am. What did you eat? Biscuits. Biscuits is supposed to be a snack. It's not a meal. You can only take it as a snack. So I want you to take that away from here. Again, some of these biscuits have very high levels of sodium. There was one sample that was able to provide up to 140% of recommended intake of sodium just by taking 100 grams of that biscuit. The nutritional value of biscuits can be significantly improved by fortification. Now we come to bread. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, bread is an important staple in many societies of the world, and its consumption cuts across cultural, economic, and religious barriers. In Nigeria, bread has been identified as the most predominant food type among the poor. Before they used to say, and I quote, "Aláàrù tó ń jẹ búrẹ́dì, àwọn orí ẹ̀ ló ń jẹ." That was before. Now it is the most predominant food type in Nigeria, especially among the poor. In your town, I'm sure as you are driving into the town, one thing you will notice is what? And your bread is very popular. People love it. You see travelers hustling to buy it. Now, studies have shown that bread is a good source of carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and so on and so forth. However, in the preparation of bread, there is a particular chemical that is of controversy, that is potassium bromate. This compound is added to the dough of the bread. It helps to strengthen it. It helps to increase the loaf volume. So when you see the bread, it's very big. But once you press it like this, what happens? It collapses. Now, potassium bromate has been found to be very toxic, and the most dangerous aspect of potassium bromate is that it is carcinogenic. And because of that, it has been banned in many countries. Countries like United Kingdom, China, Canada, they have banned the use of potassium bromate in bread. And in Nigeria, NAFDAC, our NAFDAC, they have also banned the use of potassium bromate in bread. In our investigation, we analyzed for potassium bromate using 25 randomly picked samples from Oyo and Ibadan. And to our surprise, we found that 72% of the samples analyzed contained potassium bromate. As at the time we carried out the analysis, it is quite apparent that many of the bakers have not complied with the ban on the use of potassium bromate as an additive. The Nigerian Bakers Association should be educated on the danger of using potassium bromate and encourage its members to make use of other alternatives like ascorbic acid. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, as a result of this, I have resolved in eating only Ajayi Crowther bread. I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that Aku bread is bromate free. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, there are some foods that have positive effects on health beyond basic nutrition. In other words, they have biologically active compounds in defined quantitative and qualitative amounts that have been proven clinically to offer health benefits. We call them functional food. This terminology was first of all coined in Japan in 1980s. And the Japanese government allocated research funds for studying foods or foods for specific health uses. Later on in Europe, functional food was defined as food products if together with the basic nutritional impact, it has beneficial effects on one or more functions of the human system. In other words, the food must contain essential nutrients beyond quantities required for normal maintenance, for growth, and for development. I have a table of food and their functional properties. You can see the various foods that have functional properties. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I came across one of such foods in course of my research, and that is the larva of Serena fodder Westwood, or money. How many people have heard of it before? Money. Money is an insect larva. The larva is found on the shea butter tree. Eating of insects or use of insects as food is what we call entomophagy. And it's a long-standing tradition in many cultures, especially in developing countries. You will recall in the Bible, we are told that John the Baptist, he ate what? Locusts and what? Wild honey. In Nigeria, insects commonly consumed include winged termites. That is esunsun. Are we all familiar with this? We also eat in some places, we eat crickets, we eat caterpillars, we eat beetles, we eat grasshoppers. My own study on entomophagy was looking at the larva of Serena fodder, that is money. This larva is processed, it's widely marketed, and it's an essential ingredient of vegetable soup. Once you have your muzzle of eba or inyo, you pick each muzzle, you pick one money. In 2004, I carried out a detailed study of the nutritional and toxicological aspects of Serena fodder Westwood. This, I found that the larva is very high in protein, 33%, fat, 12%, ash, 7%, crude fiber, 9.4%. So it could substitute conveniently for meat. It could substitute conveniently for meat, for fish, for egg. But the interesting aspect is that it also has functional properties. And what are the functional properties? It is very rich in potassium, but low in sodium. High potassium, low sodium. This is a functional property. It can be used as a potential component of diet for the management of hypertension. Apart from that, the fatty acid profile of the fat showed that the major fatty acids are unsaturated fatty acids. They account for about 54% of the fatty acids. This is linoleic acid and linolenic acid. This high ratio of polyunsaturated to saturated fatty acid is used to indicate cholesterol lowering potential of a food. So what are we saying here? We are saying that consumption of this larva can help in the lowering of what? cholesterol. We also did various studies like protein quality parameter, toxicological aspects, and so on and so forth. Mr. Vice Chancellor,
our solutions here.
Health is wealth,
Our solutions here.
as we all know. And I now want to consider what we mean by optimal health and how our diet, especially Nigerian food, can be used to attain this. We have said earlier that health is not merely freedom from diseases and disability, but a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. A person is said to be healthy if he or she is physically, mentally, and socially well-formed. Such a person has good mental alertness, has physical energy to perform, as well as ability to cope with stress and relate well to others. So optimal health is a lived experience that must be enjoyed at all times. There are 5 aspects to it. You have physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and intellectual. And all these aspects must be coordinated, they must be balanced in order to achieve optimal health. Now let's go back to creation. It is by divine agenda and not a mistake, I believe, that when God created Adam and Eve, He put them in the Garden of Eden. So initially, Adam and Eve, our great-grandfather and great-grandmother, were probably vegetarians because that was all there was to eat. And you will recall that in the Bible we also saw that Daniel and his 3 friends, they refused to eat the king's food and wine. They fed on diets of vegetables and water, and at the end of 10 days they looked healthier, better nourished than all the men who were eating the king's diet. Now, before the agricultural revolution, the early man was a hunter. He goes about to hunt. He goes about to gather. What does he gather? He will gather fruits, purple here, oranges there, and so on and so forth, not wild animals. His consumption of fiber, very high. Consumption of sodium, very low. Consumption of potassium, very high. With this diet, obesity, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and cancer were relatively rare. However, after the Industrial Revolution, the diet changed. It changed to highly refined, processed grains coated with salt and sugar, low fruits, low vegetables, high glycemic load, and high macronutrient density. Also, the pattern of fatty acid consumption changed. It changed from that contains a high level of saturated fats. And what do we see? Rise in the incidence of several non-communicable diseases like obesity, diabetes, cancer, and so on and so forth. Let's see how technology has helped us. Microwave oven emerged. In the microwave oven, food is cooked with waves of oscillating electromagnetic energy. The microwave oven is convenient, energy efficient, and time-saving, but it's been found that cooking using microwave reduces the level of minerals, vitamins, and some nutrients in the food. Also, some of the minerals that is present in the food may be altered to become free radicals, some of which can be carcinogenic. Again, The recent introduction of genetically modified food in the market, especially in advanced countries, is of great concern. These foods are produced from genetically modified products, and although many studies have shown that they are safe for human consumption, but their long-term effects are largely unknown. Then let's look at our lifestyle, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. In many developing countries, including Nigeria, there have been changes in the family life. Mothers now go out to work for a long time, and therefore they spend less time in the home for food preparation. So we have food processing industries, caterers, restaurants taking over to provide the meals. Physical activity for many people has reduced. Most of our occupation is sedentary. If you work in an office 8 to 5, it's a sedentary job. You are not, it's sedentary, you are not using too much energy. We also adopt sedentary leisure. Most of the time when you want to have a leisure, you go to parties, you sit down, you eat and eat and eat. Sitting down, the leisure, well, gives you some satisfaction, but it is sedentary. Then alcohol consumption has increased, so has the smoking habit. And then the recent emergence of fast food in Nigeria has added another dimension to our dietary habits. Such foods are usually mass-produced and served quickly. They are convenient, relatively inexpensive, attractive in appearance because they use a lot of additives, colors, flavors, and so on and so forth. We have examples: French fries, burgers, fried chicken, buns, popcorn, donuts, pizza. All these foods are usually high in energy density, high level of trans-saturated fat, and dietary cholesterol. They usually contain high level of salt, sugar, monosodium glutamate, MSG, but low in vitamins, essential minerals, and fiber. Studies have shown that the current fast food habits are related to increase of overweight and obesity among adolescents in developed countries, and I dare say it is coming to Nigeria. So you see, nutrition is a critical part of health and development. Better nutrition gives improved child, long life expectancy, and good maternal health, stronger immune systems, safer pregnancy and childbirth, lower risk of non-communicable diseases. Healthy children learn better, and people with adequate nutrition are more productive, and they can create opportunities that can break the vicious circle of poverty and hunger. Malnutrition. The World Health Organization defines malnutrition as a faulty diet due to imbalance between intake of nutrients and the body demands to ensure specific functions for maintenance and growth. There are many factors that can cause malnutrition, but the dietary factor is very important. You have two types of malnutrition. You have undernutrition, which is common in developing countries. Children are not eating enough, and therefore they don't have enough nutrients, and undernutrition is manifested mostly in forms of marasmus, kwashiorkor. These are protein energy malnutrition. In the advanced countries, their own story is different. Their own is due to overconsumption of calorie foods, fatty foods, and it is manifested in overweight and obesity. Without adequate and sustained investment in good nutrition, the Sustainable Development Goals cannot be realized. You will recall that the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, is a failure. The same thing can happen to the SDG if we are not careful. Mr. Vice Chancellor, at this junction, having said it all, is it possible that Nigerian food and diet can provide adequate nutrition for optimal growth? Is it possible? Let's look at the factors. Number one, Nigeria is blessed with a large variety of foods. Ajayi 2010 identified 70 crops that can be used as food in Nigeria. 70. They include sugar crops, cereals, roots and tubers, oil crops, pulses, fruits, and leaves and fruit vegetables. With such an impressive number of food crops, meals can be diversified to provide balanced diet for optimal health. The food basket needs to be enlarged. In most homes, food is restricted to just a few items. There are some homes in Nigeria that take rice every day. In a country that has up to 70 food crop varieties, and you are taking just one food commodity every day, it's a disservice. It is a disservice to nature. So, usually in the home, 14 crops are consumed by most, not more than 14, just about 14 are consumed by most families. In the recent past, the federal government was spending a lot of money to import rice into the country. Fortunately, this practice has been stopped. In any case, we don't even have money to import the rice. So, this has motivated many companies to go into rice production. Recently, we learned of Dangote starting to establish rice production mill in some states in the north. This is a step in the right direction, but rice is not the only food. Rice is not the only food that we eat. Just as the government is diversifying the economy, there is need to diversify the crop species that are produced and consumed. Let us grow more. As we are growing rice, let us grow beans. As we are growing rice, let us grow maize. As we are growing rice, let us grow yam. As we are growing rice, let us grow just plantain, so that we have a rich basket. When you have a rich basket, then it is possible to be able to get balanced diet out of such food. The second point is that our traditional methods of food processing, we have seen they are quite efficient in removing hazardous substances from our food and bringing them to levels that are not poisonous. We have seen it in the processing of maize into where we have been able to reduce considerably the level of phytic acid. Also, some of our foods have functional properties. That means apart from being able to satisfy the basic nutritional need, they also offer positive effects on our health. My study on the larva of Selena fodder shows that this insect has such properties and its consumption should be encouraged. Other researchers have identified other foods with functional properties. Examples, we have tomato, watermelon, grapefruit, bitter cola, coconut oil, zobo, bitter leaf, moringa oleifera, soya sop, ogbono. All these have been identified as containing health-promoting factors. Hippocrates, 400 BC, gave a profound statement: let medicine be thy food, and let food be thy medicine. End of quote. With a healthy diet, the body functions better physically, and then the risk of chronic non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer is reduced. Then mental benefits, lower stress level, stimulated mental ability, better mood, you are in a better mood if you are healthy. All this shows that with good nutrition, we can attain a healthy and optimal health. Now, I now come to my recommendation.
Normally, imagine the age is 24. 24 years.
The first recommendation is that there is need for us to reform our agricultural system so as to increase food production. Presently, most of the food consumed in Nigeria are produced by peasant farmers with small land holdings. And because the farmers cannot meet the needs of the populace, government has to spend a lot of money to import food. I stand here to say that Nigeria has no business importing food. We have no business importing food. We are so much endowed. We are so much endowed. And whether we like it or not, there's a lot of wealth in agriculture. I want to commend the efforts of the management of Ajayi Crowther University in the establishment of the agro business that the university is banking upon. We are trying to produce vegetables and fruits, and we want to contribute our own quota to the supply of these commodities in the market. Thank you. Then there is need for provision of social amenities in the rural areas like electricity, water, not only in the rural areas, even in the urban areas. We all need electricity and water and schools, health facilities, so that we can reduce the rural-urban migration and people will be encouraged to stay in their locality and embrace farming. The effort of the federal government in banning importation of rice and encouraging local production of these commodities is highly commendable. Another recommendation, like I have discussed before, is the need to diversify. Just as Nigeria is diversifying our economy, that's what they tell us, that we need to diversify the economy. I want to suggest that we also diversify our diets. Don't just eat the same food over and over again. The more food you eat, the chances are that you will be able to supply a full complement of nutrients that you need for the body to function. Then there are some of our cooking practices that we have to work upon. Food preparation methods need to be modified to involve least nutrient loss and contamination. Most nutrients are lost due to overcooking. Most of the time we overcook, and we use very high temperature during cooking. At times we use some chemicals that reduce the nutritional quality of our food. For instance, scum. The current practice whereby we use polyethylene wrappers to steam moi-moi should be discouraged. Our mothers were using what? And you will agree with me that if you take a sample of moi-moi that was prepared with polythene bag, it will be different in taste from that with this. Not only does this give the flavor, it also supplies some antioxidants into the food. So we have to discourage that. Another thing is the drying of foods like cassava, lafun, by the roadside, on tarred roads. The moment the woman goes out to spread the food, what happens? The goats, the chicken, they come in, they have their own field. Not only that, they excrete there. They drop their excreta there. Then the traffic, a lot of fumes from the traffic. So by the time the woman comes to park, when she's parked, and then she comes with a broom, you will see her sweeping. Just to make sure she takes most of it. And in taking most of it, she's also taking all the excreta and everything. All these practices are not good for us. Then we need innovative technology. Most of our foods will require a lot of time to prepare. Take for instance, when you want to prepare moimoi, first of all, take the bean, you pick it, to make sure there are those stones. Then you soak it. After soaking, you remove the peel. After removing the peel, you grind. After grinding, you now mix. After mixing, you now steam. We need to apply technology so that we can reduce some of these steps. And it is gratifying to note that nowadays we have bean flour. So that when you want to prepare moimoi or gbegiri, you don't have to start from the scratch. We need a lot more innovation in technology so that we will be able to prepare food in pre-cooked form. This will reduce time that is required and it removes the drudgery of cooking. You spend and that is what discourages most people. That's why most people eat rice so often, because it's so easy. Just wash and boil. One of my friends told me the story of an American who came to Nigeria and she loved moimoi. And she asked, how do you prepare it? I love it. I want to try it. And they told her, these are the steps. You do this, you do this, you do this. And she said, for just one meal? No, can't be out of that. There is need to apply technology to make life better for us. And then we have to improve our nutrition education. Ignorance is the major cause of malnutrition. You can have malnutrition even in presence of plenty. If you don't know what to eat, if you don't know how to eat it, you can have malnutrition even when there is plenty. So there is need for nutrition education, knowledge dissemination, with a view to produce individuals who can make informed decisions about food, especially in the changes of life that we have nowadays. So the nutrition education makes the individual to appreciate the importance of food, the various nutrients, and how to prepare them. I'm suggesting that nutrition education should therefore be within the domain of education in both formal and informal sector, particularly for our general studies courses.
So some people package some of these things, so you can't blame a lot of people.
Many Nigerian diets are conducive to healthy eating and their consumption is promoted. Then we have to reduce the consumption of our three popular solid sources, gari, and yam and fufu. We can replace with flours made from millet, sorghum, oats, wheat, unripe plantain, sweet potato, local rice. These ones are higher in fiber and they give us better nutrition. Then we have to carry out simple modification of our stew, like reducing the quantity of palm oil. There is a Yoruba adage, epo ni rojo ofe. The more the oil, the more people think the stew looks. For palm oil, it's a very good food product, but it has a high level of saturated fatty acids. I'm not saying we should not eat palm oil. I'm just saying that we should be what? Moderate. And then we can also make use of soybeans. Soybeans is a versatile grain that can be processed into a large variety of foods, and its consumption should be encouraged. We make vegetable soup, soya gari, soya moi moi, soya bread, soya balls, and pies, and so on and so forth. Then we have to promote our traditional snacks. Like roasted plantain, akara, roasted yam, ìpékeré, kókóró, rogo, mustard, and a host of others. We have to promote its consumption so that they don't die out. We should substitute them for all these foreign snacks and fast food. I want to recall there was one 70th birthday celebration that I went, and what they served before the main meal was just akara made in palm oil, and we all enjoyed it. And finally, consumption of fruits. It appears Nigerians have an aversion to fruits, whereas fruit is supposed to be a regular component of the diet. If I'm to take a survey in this hall, did you eat any fruit yesterday? This country is blessed with a variety of fruits. In fact, in this our PDT or your zone, we have a lot of fruits, and we should make sure that we consume them. Oranges, grapes, mango, pawpaw, pineapple, watermelon. We have a whole variety. We have no business not to be eating them. In conclusion, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, in the course of this lecture, I have described food, the basic concepts of food and nutrition. I have discussed the efficacy of various traditional processing of our local foods in producing diets that are wholesome and rich in nutrients. I have contributed to the analytical data of Nigerian food which can be used in nutrition survey, dietetic treatment of patients, and standard organization. The importance of functional foods have been stressed, and relationship between adequate nutrition and optimal health has been discussed. I repeat the question I asked earlier. Can Nigerian foods and diets provide adequate nutrition required for optimal health? Yes. The answer is a resounding yes, provided that the proviso, the principles of nutrition are applied. There is a proviso. Nigerian foods and diets are conducive to healthy living, and their consumption should be encouraged to give optimal health. Those practices that are not good, we should modify them or jettison them. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to commend the efforts of the Vice Chancellor and the management of the university in taking Ajayi Crowther to the present level. In particular, I appreciate their efforts in introducing many new programs. We now have many new programs in our curriculum. If you look at the back of the lecture, you will see all the various programs that are being offered by this university. Mr. Vice Chancellor, I thank you for this effort. And I look forward to the time in the nearest future when food science and nutrition program will commence at Ajayi Crowther University. Let me at this juncture give you this simple admonition, and that is pay careful attention to your diet. Don't just eat anything, because you are what you eat. It is important for me at this time, it is necessary and appropriate for me to recognize and publicly appreciate all those who supported, encouraged, guided, and nurtured me. My profound gratitude goes first of all to Almighty God, the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient God, the ancient of days, the I am that I am, for making today a reality. I never dreamt I could go this far. It is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in my sight. I therefore return all the glory, honor, and adoration to Baba God. With God, all things are possible. I'm deeply indebted and eternally grateful to my parents, Mr. and Mrs. James Akinloye Kuyejo, both of blessed memory. I acknowledge with gratitude their love, discipline, Christian training, and their dogged determination to invest in the education of their children despite their meager resources. Initially, my father was a trained tailor, but later ventured into business, while my mother was a businesswoman all through. I recall that on many occasions, my mother had to bail out our father in the payment of school fees, because she believed very much in education, especially that of the girl child. May their gentle souls continue to rest in perfect peace. I want to recognize and appreciate my brothers and sisters together with their spouses for a close-knit family. I appreciate my new family, the Akinowo family of Ondo City. I joined this wonderful family in December 1972, and they accepted me wholeheartedly as a daughter, wife, and mother. Thank you for your love and support. I wish to thank all my teachers from primary to tertiary level. I remember with nostalgia my principal at Queen's School, Ede, Chief Mrs. C.F. Oreguba, of blessed memory. She worked hard to impart self-discipline, hard work, and integrity to all the young girls under her care at that time. May her soul rest in perfect peace. I thank all my lecturers in the Department of Chemistry, University of Ibadan, especially late Emeritus Professor Donald Ekong, for teaching me biological and macromolecules, which opened my eyes to food chemistry. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to appreciate my academic mentor, Professor A.O. Ketipo. He supervised all my thesis at the University of Ibadan. Thank you very much, sir. My former colleagues at the Department of Chemistry, Polytechnic Ibadan, I thank you for coming. I thank and appreciate the past and present management of Ajayi Crowther University for their relentless efforts in taking this university to great heights. I want to specially thank and acknowledge our Vice Chancellor, Right Reverend Professor Dapo Fọlọ́runṣọ́ Aṣáájú. A leader of men, according to his name, Aṣáájú. A manager of men, and scarce resources, an achiever, a pragmatic administrator, a brilliant and intelligent academician par excellence, and most importantly, a child of God, and a servant of the Most High God. Thank you, sir, for appreciating my modest contribution to Ajayi Crowther University and for giving me the opportunity to serve the university at the professorial level. My colleagues in the Department of Chemical Sciences, I appreciate you all. My special thanks goes to Professor Gio Adedino, now that we know. We started the department together as pioneering staff, and he has been my brother, friend, and encourager. The Lord will bless you and your family. I want to appreciate people who assisted me in the preparation of this lecture: Professor A. Oketiku, Professor G. Oadejino, Professor Latunde Ayodabo, Mr. Dr. Joseph Afolabi, and Mr. Falashe. Thank you very much for all your contribution to this paper. My appreciation goes to my church, the Chapel of the Resurrection, University of Ibadan. I can see here seated my chaplain, the very Reverend O.O. Oyeladi. Thank you very much. And my assistant chaplain too. You are welcome, sir. Now, my club, Resurrection Units. These are my sisters. We have been together, loving each other, supporting each other. Off lilies. My special thanks to my classmates and friends from Queen's School, Eje. We call ourselves Queen 63 and RSC. We have been friends since 1959. Some 58 years ago, when we entered into Form 1, into our alma mater, and our friendship has blossomed to include our spouses and children. Some of them are here. Professor Sanwa Odebi, Professor Yinka Soni, Professor Murayo Atimo, Professor Yinka Falusi, Professor Remi Opeke, in my set, about 9 of us are professors. Remi Fayemi, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming. My big brother, Sakoy. My sister, Tolani. You've all been very dear to me. My friend, Iyabo Mabawanku, I can see you. And I can see some big people here. I don't have the mouth to call their names. I have given the list to a higher authority. To all who have come here to felicitate with me and to rejoice with me for today, I say thank you and may God bless you all. I appreciate God for our children who have given us so much joy, happiness, and peace of mind. Oludolapo is here. Akilolu is away in Canada. He was not able to make it. And Abimbola Balako and Abimbola came from the UK. They and their spouses, Olubumi, Morayo, and Olushe, they have made us proud grandparents many times over. I love you all. I pray in Jesus' name that you all live to see your children's children. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, and I quote, "Two are better than one, because they are reward for their labor, for if they fail, one will lift up his companions. I found the bone of my bone and the flesh of my flesh 45 years ago. He was a young assistant lecturer in economics at the University of Lagos. But shortly after our marriage in December 1972, he abandoned the university. He said his take-home salary would not take him home. So he opted for full-time consultancy in economics. We've been together since then, through thick and thin, loving, supporting, encouraging each other, and by God's grace, we are more than conquerors. Ladies and gentlemen, love is the greatest way of living. Always hoping and always trusting to the very end. Thank you, my love. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, this is the end of my story. I thank you all for listening.
Please be seated.
I hereby do pronounce that this day, the 8th of March in the year of our Lord 2018, Professor Oladunni Akinowo has successfully inaugurated and chaired as Professor of Food Chemistry in Ajayi Crowther.
Yes, sir.